Before we begin sewing, it's really important to know the parts of a sewing machine. So the first part of the sewing machine that we will discuss is the needle. This is the small sharp piece of metal that's found right here that goes up and down, and it goes through the fabric in order to sew. It has a little hole in the very bottom, which is where you put your thread in order to make a stitch. Alright, the throat plate is located kind of underneath the needle. It's this big metal piece right here, and it's what the fabric lays on top of in order to sew. And it has little lines on it that show the measurements for how far away from the needle it is. So for example, if you want to sew at 5/8, which is your normal seam allowance, you'd line up the fabric with that line like this. So you slide it over till this edge of your fabric lines up with the line on the throat plate, and then you're ready to sew. The presser foot is located underneath the needle as well, and it's this metal piece right here. And it's called presser foot because it kind of looks like a foot, and it presses down on the fabric so that it holds it in place while you sew. The presser foot is lifted up and down so that the fabric can be slid underneath it in order to sew more easily. So in order to lift it up and down, there's this little piece of, it'll either be metal or plastic, that you can move up and down, and it's called the presser foot lifter. Alright, the feed dogs are these little zigzag teeth-like pieces of metal that are underneath your presser foot, and they help move the fabric along by gripping onto it so that when you make a stitch, it will push the fabric back. And so, if you notice, they go up and down as you are stitching in order to move that fabric. Alright, so this is a bobbin. It holds the thread which makes the bottom half of a stitch, so the bobbin thread loops up to meet the thread from the needle in order to make a strong stitch. It's held in the bobbin case, which is right here, and usually it'll have a covering on it so that nothing gets caught in, but we're going to take it off so that you can see. And you'll put your bobbin right down in here when you're sewing so that it can meet the thread from the needle. Okay, this is the spool pin. It's what holds your thread. Sometimes it'll be facing to the side, sometimes it will be up. But this is what holds your thread, like so that you can thread your machine and hold it in place. Alright, so this little dial shows your upper thread tension. This can be adjusted so if your thread isn't quite making even stitches, usually for each machine it has a specific number and it won't need to change on a regular basis. Alright, the thread take-up lever is located kind of inside but in the front of your machine. It's this little silver piece right here. So when you thread your machine, you'll want to thread the thread through that so that it can take it up and down. And if you notice, when you make a stitch, it goes up and down so that it pulls your thread so that it makes a good stitch. Alright, so this is the foot pedal. It's kind of like your gas pedal on a car, but it's what gets the sewing machine started and makes stitch. So you just press gently down on it, and you can hear the sewing machine going, and then you let up in order to stop sewing. Alright, this is the hand wheel right here. It's what manually moves the needle up and down, and it's very helpful to start or end stitches where it's kind of hard to get the sewing machine going. And remember, you always turn it towards you, so it's counterclockwise, so that the stitching is coming towards you. So these are the stitch width and length controls. The stitch width controls how wide a stitch is, and this is used on zigzag stitches, so you can go anywhere from 0 all the way up to 6.5 on this machine. And the stitch length controls how long they are. Usually we'll be sewing at about 2.5 or 2.4. That's your regulation stitching, but that goes back and forth all the way from about 0 to 4. Alright, now that you know all the parts of the machine, you're ready to start sewing.
Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-patter? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with those blues on parade, but I'm not afraid.
Thanks for watching.